Okay. So we're recording this call. So if there's anything that you say that you want to be kept confidential just between this group, then let me know. I don't want anyone to hesitate just because it's being recorded. So I can edit that out if you say something that you'd rather have me not share. Okay. So any comments about the first chapter? Anything that, the first page that Jeff brought up? Or anything about it, even in the second page where he talks about some of the things that he did. He had teenage sons when he was dating. And so I can talk about his approach and how that helped me. If anyone doesn't have anything. Oh, did I welcome you, Christina and Jeff? Welcome, you guys. So this is Jeff's story. He said, when I was ready to begin dating, I told my 2 teenage sons something like this. Guys, I am going to start dating. I think it's time. I will probably eventually get married. I hope both of you will like the women I date, and especially the one I eventually marry. If you have any thoughts or opinions about the women I choose to date, I will listen to you and consider your thoughts and feelings. I encourage you to be open with me. But I want to also be clear that you do not have a vote. I will decide for myself who to date and who to marry for my own reasons and in the best interest of our family. When you are both dating and eventually get married, I will give you the same respect. I hope you will listen to my thoughts and feelings, but I will not have control over you. I hope you will listen to my thoughts and feelings, but I will not have control over who you decide to marry. So kind of the mutual respect of our older children. So what are the ages of your children? We could ask that. Where are you guys in your stage of dating? How old are your kids? Mine's 10. I have one daughter. She's 10 years old.
I have 7, 9, 16, and then 19 and 21.
Okay, so you have the whole gamut. You have the whole ring. Yeah. Erin, do you have kids?
I do. My youngest are 17-year-old twins, and I have 19-year-old, 21-year-old, and a 23-year-old.
Okay, so it is going to be different. The advice, I don't know how much the advice is different, other than just, I love that what Jeff said is, I'm going to start dating. Does anyone else want to say how old their kids are? If that's important for us to know, if it matters, or you want to say? Christina, do you have kids?
Yes. I live with my 13 years old. Okay. We're like a roommates, and then I have a 15 years old daughter that I see her after high school, but she's mostly with her dad. And then the other 3 oldest, they already moved out from the house.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, you have a little bit of starting at 17 though, you said. Starting at the youngest is 17, you said.
Well, correct? The youngest is 13.
Oh, 13. Oh, but the one that's living with you is 17.
Yeah, okay. The 13 years old lives with me.
Oh.
The 15 lives with her dad. Okay. And I see her every day after school. And then my other 3 oldest, they already moved out. Okay.
So yeah, you have the teenagers and older. And Sharon has adult children. Anyway, you don't have to, I'll say, I'm just curious where we are, because I guess my child is the youngest. But I'll tell you this, she is as mature as your 17-year-old. She's like 10 going on 17 for sure. And so, and I don't know if that's good or bad. I mean, some ways it's good, some ways it's not fabulous. Oh, okay. And then Sharon said 22 to 39. Those are her ages, of 22 to 39. I've been able to keep everything really open with my daughter, and I've always felt like that's so important. So I loved this. That was the part that jumped out for me in this chapter from Jeff, is that I told Caitlin, my daughter, just about the exact same thing. I said, I'm going to start dating and eventually I'm going to find someone to marry. But then I said, would you like to, I gave her the option. I said, would you like to meet these men that I date when they're my friends and you become friends with him, like I with me? Or do you want to wait until I find someone that I want to marry and then introduce you? And she said that I want to be friends. So so just go along with it. And I said, and I did warn her too. I said, they're not all going to become, we're not going to probably keep friendships with all of them. And there might be some that would not work out for dating and might break up. And just so you know, it's just all part of life. It's a part of dating. And but I know that you and I will both enjoy, the people that and I also said, I will promise you this. You will always be safe with the men that I date. That's important to her too, to know that I will not date someone unless I know that he is a safe person for you and for me. So that's another thing I think that meant a lot to her, that I told her, I want to find someone who adores me and I will want for him to adore you also. And so that I don't know.
Conversation.
I don't know if I did it too
conversation
much.
that you had.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Okay. Love that conversation that you had. And my daughter, we actually, my youngest, as she started to meet just a few select people that I chose for my kids to meet, she has a really good sense of people. And so we all just started to say, okay, Jenna needs to do her vibe test
Yeah.
on these people, because
That's
she has, and over a few years of dating, her vibe test is actually just right on.
awesome. That's so good. She's your little discerner. So you can screen all the men you date through her. If she approves, then it's good, right? Is that how you do it?
Yep. That's the cliche or the joke.
Right. Yes, that's awesome. That's so good. But then I think it's also important to emphasize, just like what Jeff said to his boys, is that I will hear what you have to say, but in the end, I will be the one to choose. And sometimes feeling safe to her might be, I want my way. So that's something we would also have a conversation about, is that if I don't get to have my way, then she might be just say, I don't feel safe. And actually that was something that she did say, to be actually honest. And I told her, excuse me, sorry. Excuse me for just 1 second while I take this drink.
The other thing that I thought was kind of fun with my kids is my daughter actually had questions about my standards in dating, which, she knows how I've taught her to date. But I needed to reassure her that I was holding to the exact same standards that I would expect her to.
That's good. That's so good.
But that needed to be reiterated.
Yes. Well, that's good. I guess I don't need to say the other part. It's not important. I just was saying, you have to have open conversations, and it's important to hear what they have to say. But then, like I've said, ultimately is your decision. And welcome, Suzanne, Ms. Atkinson.
Sorry, I'm late.
Oh, it's just fine. I'm glad you're here. Better late than never, for sure.
The day got away from me.
That's okay.
So Sherry, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned how your daughter said that for her to feel safe, she needed to have her way.
Yeah.
Is that for me, I would want to converse with her and say, well, it doesn't mean you get your way.
Right.
I want you to feel safe, even if you don't get your way. But I don't know. I was wondering if that.
Well, the conversation that we had was, there's a difference between, and I just clarified with her, what I mean by feeling safe is not that you get to have your way. It is that you truly are emotionally and physically safe. He's not abusing you. She understands abuse. She understands crossing boundaries even. I mean, there's even things that she might think, I don't feel safe. Even with me, I have to get her permission. Not that she's done this to me. I've done it to myself. I've actually decided for myself that I want to know that if I'm going to share a personal story of hers with other people, I want to give her the respect of asking her if this is okay. Is this all right if I share this story about you? Because she gets really embarrassed. So, I mean, if she was here right now, she might even be embarrassed that I'm even saying this. But So that's our sensitive definition of feeling safe, is that personal boundaries are really important. But that's anyway. So for her, we talk a lot about boundaries. And does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah.
So
You know, I
sorry.
probably we probably share a couple of experiences, because I have my Jenna, she is that same way. Her standards and her personal boundaries are very high.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there have been a couple of times where she's been like, you know what, I just don't want to be here when you have people around that you're not ready to introduce me to.
Yeah.
And so
That's
that's one of the things,
different. Yep.
like in
everyone's
dating, that, you know, has of course made things a little more challenging logistically, but you know, it's important to honor that, like you said.
Yes, so important. And I mean, even with me, and that's even clarifying, I mean, that's another conversation we would have, is that I even make you feel embarrassed sometimes, and I don't do it intentionally, but you will have those moments. But I also said, I really I want you to trust me that I will be the judge of what is safe for you. And you can still tell me, we can talk through it, but but I don't feel like you not getting your way means that you're not safe. It just means that you're not happy with the result. Anyway, so yeah, that's a whole other conversation, a whole other chapter, right? So let's see. So Jeff gives these 2 schools of thought. Suzanne, did you have anything to share in the first few pages? That we're in page 205 right now. If you highlighted anything that you wanted to drop in, feel free. Oh, you have a phone, so you don't know the page.
I don't know the page number.
Well, right now we're on the 2 schools of thought. We mentioned that at the beginning, so I won't talk too much about that, but just the one school of thought is that we wait until we feel secure in our relationship, maybe engaged, maybe getting married. But he said the kids can get attached to your partner, and then if you break up, the kids get their hearts broken as well. And then he said, for these reasons, it is thought best to wait until the relationship is serious and perhaps contemplating marriage before the children are introduced. The downside is that the children may be struggling to play catch up. That's what I did. I mentioned at the beginning. I had to play catch up. I've all of a sudden had this new dad in my life who he just would say, and my mom just said flat out, he didn't like kids. He doesn't like kids. So just be prepared. He's not going to be super nice at first. Well, and that was a lot of years of not nice. But anyway, the downside is that the children may be struggling to play catch up, and when you are in a loving relationship with someone who's a stranger to them. So that's why I love introducing her. And I don't know, you guys probably saw my post, so I don't want to go too much into that, but I made that decision to introduce her early on to this person that I was seeing. And we went down and stayed in a hotel, and then we spent the whole Thanksgiving weekend together, getting to know him in the daytimes, and then going to Thanksgiving dinner and all that kind of stuff. So we got to have the opportunity to for her to get to know him. I knew him better because we talked on the phone, but that's all. So I really am glad I did that. And just quickly to tell you why is that I still have a positive experience. I still have a positive attitude about our relationship, and how even though it ended, I still feel like we gained a new friend, and even my daughter. The thing I loved most about it is that she got to see me happy with someone who adores me, and that I reciprocate that adoration. She got to see that, and that's what I want more than anything in my marriage relationship, is for her to see what a healthy, happy relationship looks like and is and feels like. And she got to feel that and see that, and he was so playful with her the whole time we dated. We dated for 3 months, but we would spend weekends together instead of just a couple hours on a date, because we live so far away. So we would end up spending I'd stay in a hotel. He stayed in Airbnb once, and then I stayed in Airbnb another time. I stayed with his parents one time. So it was always a way for us we just spent days together, and he played with her more. And when he left, the last time he left, which was New Year's Eve weekend, she said, I'm so sad that he's leaving. He plays with me more than you do. So she had this fun relationship with him. And she, but and then no, she doesn't hear, I'm not depressed that we didn't work out. I'm not saying anything bitter about him. I'm not saying negative things. She doesn't hear me saying whatever we normally would say. He's a jerk, whatever. But she's hearing me still say positive things about him, and that I was so glad that he was in our life. And she is saying that. She even brought up the other day that she loves. She hasn't said I miss him, because she didn't know him probably well enough. But she has said, I really like Brian, and I hope that you can see him again soon, But anyway, that's what I like about it, is that if you can keep a positive attitude, I think that's the key. I think if you're going to decide to wait because you don't want them to have conflict, I think it's up to you to not create that conflict, and to make it be okay for you to have these breakups, and they see that and they feel that, and they model it too. Yes, Suzanne.
Yeah. I'm I don't know. My situation is a little bit different. When I was first divorced, my youngest was 19 years old. So my kids are older. I do still have my youngest at home living with me, but their dad immediately introduced someone to the family, and there were some downfalls from that, but I've watched that evolve, and I've seen the hard and the good of that. But I've had talks with all of my kids, because they're all older, and I think any relationship I get into is going to mostly affect my daughter that does live with me. But so she and I talk all the time. We're like, we have to find somebody we both like. Because she's in a place right now where she does need to live with me. But when I talked to my son, I said, the time's going to come when I'm dating and will want to remarry. And I said, chances are I'm going to sell the house, and we'll create our own home. And he was quiet for a minute, and he goes, well, there'll be room for me in your new house? And I said, there's always going to be room in my house for my kids. Yeah. He says, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, that's all they care about.
So yeah, they just want to know that, I'm not in a situation so much where someone else is going to be raising my kids. Mm-hmm. They're going to be grandpa to my grandkids is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And if, so that's a different time frame of life.
I think the majority of the people on this call relate more to what you're saying. So maybe that couple, other than Eric having a couple of younger kids, but the majority of them are teenagers and older. So what would you say, and this, because I've been seeing this from the perspective of a mother of a 10-year-old, what have you done, or what works for you, or what did you notice in the chapter? What works for teenagers? Erin kind of gave me the thought of maybe having a conversation with each one and say, each one of them, how do you feel, and treating each of them differently. Would you like to meet them or not? Have a conversation with each, or have a family discussion. This is what we're going to do. Is anyone opposed to this? What is your experience, you guys, that you want to talk to that of how you handle Eric?
So I had so when I was about to start, well, when I was starting to meet women, this just happened like New Year's Day was when I started, so I'm just brand new to this, but I talked with the kids about how, I'll be dating and stuff. And they're like, like when the two younger ones were there, and they were just like totally chill with it. And I think it helped, because I think what helped them has been helping them, I think, with that is that we, like when I was married, we had just all kinds of people living with us at different times. So we had, over 100 foreign exchange students over,
wow,
a decade, and just lots of people kind of coming and going. And so, they're kind of, I think they're used to that, they're kind of used to the idea of meeting new people, and maybe sometimes they go away and you don't see them ever again, kind of a thing. And so, so they seem to be like just totally like unfazed by it completely. My 16-year-old though, she, I mentioned, that I was going to be dating, and she's like, oh, well, I don't want to hear anything about that. I just think about you and mom, and that's all I want to think about.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then she asked me one time why I was on the computer, looking up some stuff, and I was looking for restaurants, that were COVID friendly or whatever. and she, she's like, well, why are you doing that? And I'm like, you don't want to know, like, I'll be happy to tell you about it, but you don't want to hear about this. And she's like, so like a couple days later, she asked me, she's like, okay, tell me, what were you doing?
It's a special daddy-daughter date.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you thought it was something like that. I don't know. But I ended up telling her, that I was looking for a place to take someone on a date, and it kind of started to open up the conversation a bit.
Good,
And
good.
and she asked me, like,
You validated her feeling of not wanting to hear it, la 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 la. But yeah, you validated that first, which I think maybe helped.
yeah, and then she, we started talking more about it, and she seemed to be more okay with it, and then it's really interesting because she just went on her first date like
Oh,
what,
fun.
3 weeks ago or something.
Oh, that's cool.
And so like we're both like starting out this dating thing at the same time.
Yeah.
And so it's actually started to become a bonding thing. So I mean, I haven't talked with them about like introducing, I haven't had that conversation yet, but
Yeah.
I think it's been helpful to talk with the kids about the process that we're going through.
Yeah. And when you first brought up how she felt at first, I was thinking of our children, maybe the younger ones more than the others, are kind of hold on to that hope that maybe mom and dad will get back together. This is my security. This is what I know. Maybe not. Suzanne says maybe not. But that I've made that clear. She'll bring it up a lot. I still want you and dad to get back together. And I really want you guys to work that out. And she'll even say prayers. And and so I have actually had to explain, and this is another reason why she's so mature, I think, and why I involve her so much, is that I just felt like it was important for me to tell her why I divorced, why I chose to divorce, and not as many, I mean, as much detail as she could handle at a 10-year-old, not making it sound blaming at all, not blaming, but just saying this is what where I was, and this is why, and so that's it. And then and reiterated, we very likely will not ever be getting back together. And so she's had this hope. I think I burst that bubble, I think, by just saying some of those conversations. And then in saying, I think giving her the vision of what this new family will be like, I think was helpful too. Saying I'm going to find someone, and I kind of the vision board description of this person that I want to find, someone who adores me and someone who I can adore back, and high respect and respecting you. And anyway, I think that helped her a lot to say he's not going to replace your dad. He's just going to be an addition to someone else to love you in your life. So I don't know if older kids have conversations like that with older kids, if that's something you guys have had. Does anyone else want to say what your experience has been with your conversations with your kids in dating? Jeff also mentioned a little bit in the book. Okay. So.
Oh, can I make one more comment?
Please, yes, yeah.
So I remember now that second conversation with her where she's like, well, Dad, why are you moving on so quickly? Like my divorce just finalized in December. And, we were separated for 17 months, and she's like, why are you moving on so fast, or whatever. And so I got to have that conversation with her, really briefly about my process of working through just intensely and kind of quickly, really just a lot of the pain and emotions and processing, and just kind of conveying how I just worked really hard through these things, and that I feel ready. Like I feel whole. I feel like I feel safe. I feel open, and I wanna find someone, and that was really, I think she really took that.
And sometimes, from my experience, maybe I don't know about everyone else, but maybe the last 3 years of my marriage was my healing. That was the time when I was trying to keep this marriage together. I was giving my all, everything that I could give to save this marriage. And so I really really came to terms with dealing with that loss in the middle of my marriage. I was dealing with the loss of my dreams of this marriage that I always had in my heart. I was dealing with the loss of just the covenants that we made and the, all of that. I dealt with all of that loss. So the end of my marriage. So after I was divorced, I someone could have said that I was ready, but I didn't date. And it's been 4 years now for me, and I'm just barely starting to feel okay about it. So anyway, everyone is different processes, though. That's good. It's a good way to stay open. And younger kids, knowing for sure that it's not your fault. She just brought up the other day, she feels like it was her fault, and she told of a story that she thinks that if she would have made a different choice, that we would not be divorced. So that's a heavy burden for these kids to carry. And we've had that conversation before, and we just do what we can and explain it better this time to understanding. Okay.
I have something, Sherry.
Uh-huh.
I haven't fully thought this thought out. So let me think.
Okay.
But kids do need to know what's going on. And really when we finally had the talk with the kids about, okay, mom and dad are separating, and they were like, oh, it's about time.
Yeah, they felt it.
They weren't surprised. They knew of the things that were going on. And after the divorce, all of my kids came to me and talked to me about how strong I was and how much they appreciated all the effort that I had put into the marriage. They recognized that the choices that were made. I probably am the one that said, yeah, I'm done. But it really wasn't me that ended the marriage.
Yeah.
I said I'm done, but
choices, yes.
The choices were there, and the choices were that the marriage was not being honored.
Yeah.
And so I just had, my kids have all been okay with it. They would like to see me dating actually more. And I'm just now, I've been divorced for a little over 3 years. But I had a lot of trauma, like right when the divorce was finalized. And it wasn't just that. The week that my divorce was finalized, my mother was diagnosed with terminal breast cancer. 2 of my kids were in very bad situations as well. But that's their story. And then my mom died, and my former spouse's sister died. She was also diagnosed that same month that the divorce was final. So there was a lot of I lost a lot of people, people that were the important people in my life. My mother that I had known my entire life. Yeah. I am an only daughter of an only daughter. So I was incredibly close with my mother, and I was with her till her last breath. And that was really, really hard. And to lose my mother, I had been married for 28 years. So the next person that knew me for 28 years was gone. I didn't have that sounding board and that support system. My children were in trauma. And so I really had to dig deep and figure out how to take care of me in a situation where I did not have the support that I had previously. And what I did is I started going to the temple every week. And I came to term these my daddy-daughter dates. And so I had daddy-daughter dates, and I still have daddy-daughter dates. As long as the temple's been open, I've been doing daddy-daughter dates. And so, because I just realized that my covenant wasn't just with my former spouse. My covenant is not just with my children. And my covenant is with Heavenly Father. And I didn't have anybody else to really walk me through all of the stages of grief. And I had a lot of grief because I lost some really important people in my life. And so I went to the temple, and that really built my foundation. And now it's been, 3 years. And now I'm like, okay, now I'm ready. And that was really when I first found this book. And I was like, okay, this is going to really give me some pointers on how to date without being taken advantage of, and how to date without, just
Being triggered.
minimizing the risk.
Yeah.
There's no way to eliminate the risk, as Jeff likes to point out.
Yeah.
There's definitely risk involved, but I'm finally healthy enough to a point where I'm willing to take some risks, and I'm willing to be more vulnerable and to open myself up. But I really had to heal from, that little capsule of trauma that happened. And it wasn't just the divorce. It was a lot of other things that happened at the same time.
Yeah, no kidding. So, Erin, did you have something to say about the trauma healing?
Well, yeah, a couple of different things, and I'll bet we all have, to one degree or another, some similarities to our story. But for me, it was really a difficult thing. I identified with what you said about carrying, like mourning the death of the dream of the family that was going to be your eternal family. And I carried that so heavily on my shoulders for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Until I randomly I wish somebody would have had this conversation with me. And so I feel like, I want to share it with everybody here.
Please,
Somebody, we don't hear it often enough. There's more than one way to leave a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody just said, because I was the one that said I'm done, and I filed and I moved out, that, he had left the marriage, or, maybe I left the marriage emotionally, spiritually, physically, in so many other ways.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you, I hope that, at some point somebody else will feel the weight lift, the way I did, and have that relief from hearing that. Also, at the same time, my ex-husband moved on quickly. He was engaged and married within 6 months after our divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that same time, I was dealing with, okay, well, there's a new woman in this scenario, and, he's married, and the kids are having all of these changes going on all at the same time.
Yeah.
And dealing with my kids, I think teenagers, as they go through divorce, they deal with a lot more anger than younger children. And younger children, they still go through the anger, but I think it's delayed, is from what I've read and from what I've seen. So, for example, my oldest son was 17 at the time, and him processing his anger was one of the most difficult and trying things as a single mother.
Mm-hmm.
Just because at that time he was growing into his body and his hormones, and we actually had some situations where he, started to push me and things where, like, it was difficult. And so we had to seek outside help and things like that. But as far as the transition for children and making it through that, I think what you said about seeing how happy their parents are, and if the relationship is truly a healthy relationship, right?
Yes.
If, like Eric said, if you processed all of those things, and, you explain to them, this is my process. I can tell you, how authentic and healthy I'm trying to be. I'm going to be healthier.
Yeah.
And your dad or your mom is going to be healthier
Yeah.
than we were in that relationship.
Yeah.
It's really an important thing.
Yeah. And I love that you said that. Something I thought about too when you were talking just now is that it's okay to have a heartbreak too. I think it's okay for them to see our heart breaking and to see how we handle it. And to hear the words that we speak to our Heavenly Father when we're going through it and turning our hearts to Him. And how we find our solutions. I think that's also valuable. So even though I try to stay upbeat and positive about turnouts, I still have been okay about being honest too. And that it's sad when that happens to me, but I just hold on to the hope that someday this person will be all this and more, because they will stick around, So anyway, I think that's all good. Yes.
One thing, I have 3 daughters. Like I said, my kids were, 19. The youngest was 19, so they were in their 20s. And those 3 daughters have been watching me. They have been watching how I handle the divorce. They have been watching me remain friends with their father. They have been watching me become educated and stronger and changing my career and doing the things that make me healthy. And they watch.
Yes.
And really by example, that is the biggest teacher, because I know that, none of my kids right now have chosen to be active in the church. So it's only by letting my light shine that they have exposure. So they watch and they see and they're like, yeah, mom's doing really good. And they're really proud of me and the things that I've done. So, it's the example. And even though they don't live with me, they're watching and they're seeing how I'm dealing with it.
Yes. Kelly, I hope you don't mind me putting you on the spot. If you can hear me, I don't know how you feel about this. So Kelly is a widow, and I'm just curious the ages of your kids or how that has been with kind of in light of the conversation we're having. If you feel like saying anything,
Yeah, no, it's fine.
you're dating new
No.
people, and how has that been for you?
Yeah, and I'll turn my video back on. I've been trying to work, but I don't want to be distracting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my kids are 32, 29, 20, and oh, I have a funky background. Sorry about that. 29, 27, 24, and 21. And so I was dating somebody who was actually another widower. He was actually a high school friend. I think I talked about him a couple weeks ago. And, in the beginning, probably about almost a year ago when I was on dating websites, I know my one child had a really hard time with it. She's probably she's my 29-year-old, and she's really sensitive and just has always been that way. And she had a hard time with it. My son-in-law was the one that had the worst with it. And that was because my sister actually lost her husband the same year that my husband passed away. And so my sister has since already remarried. And when she got engaged, my son-in-law said, I don't want to hear about it. He didn't even want to accept that, let alone accept me. The idea of me dating. I think my kids liked the idea of this friend because he was from high school when we dated for this short little amount of time, because at least it was somebody they knew I had known long term. So I think they liked that. But I think it's just different because there's their own mourning that's going on too, and they're having to watch me mourn, and then they're not maybe ready necessarily to move on, and I'm not even moving on. I'm just finding another person, because like I've told so many people, we forget that we have the capacity, just like I love all 5 of my children differently. We do have the capacity to love other people. And my youngest, he's 21, and he had just moved out of the house right before my husband had passed away. And so he had built a new relationship with his dad. He was one of those kind of difficult teenagers, and they had rebuilt that relationship. And so I think he also struggled with it, but ultimately my kids have said they want me to be happy. I mean, I'm relatively young, and I don't think they want to see me alone for a long time. And because I have longevity in my family, I mean, I have an aunt that passed away, a great aunt at 100 years old. So the potential is there to live a long time, and I feel like I will. So I think it is different with, for me, it is different because I have children that, well, actually I shouldn't say this. I think in both circumstances, children love their parents, both of them. It's just for my children, their dad is gone. And so they have to deal with those emotions of their own grieving. They have to watch me grieve and then be able to try to understand my desire and my understanding to seek to be married again. So
Yes,
that's my perspective.
Sharing that. So something that, and I hope I don't get too teary, because this when I get touched, I get that way. But what you just shared with me, I just feel like what we have in common, all of us, is that we have these children that we love, and that we care about their feelings and their experiences in life, the lessons they learn and how they make it through. And in both cases, our children are grieving, and they have different ways of handling them. They have different ways of making it through, and understanding and living with it and dealing with it, just like every human being. Like it's not just because they're our kids, but everyone is so different, that having that the empathy for them And also, I have to say the quote that Kathy said, and we'll talk a little about this as well, but she said, let your kids see us swim with those other fish in the sea. By choosing to date for our highest good, let them support our enjoyment of swimming in the sea of wonderful options until we find our favorite fish. So I love that quote too from Kathy, that even though our kids are grieving, and we can have empathy for that, and we can support them, and we can allow them to speak their thoughts and their mind and their feelings and have boundaries, we still have our own ourselves. We still have these things, and this is what we need. And when we are in a place of healthy, like Suzanne also mentioned, when we are in a healthy place in relationship, or maybe it was Aaron that said it, that's what is best for our kids, really. I mean, as far as this divorce or losing a spouse through death, life, when we get to the point where we are in a happy relationship that we have created after all of this stuff, I think that's what the most valuable thing is how we handled it. And sometimes we won't handle it well, and they will see it, and they will do the same thing in their decision, their choices, and their losses. And they will see, well, it's not the end of the world, because mom made some mistakes like this too, and she made it through, she's human too, just like, and I am too. Anyway, I'm off on the little soapbox, but thank you, Kelly, for saying that, because I do see how what we have in common, our children have in common, is that they are all grieving loss as we are. Oh, and Kathy.
What? Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
We have a family in my ward that actually 3 brothers of this family of 7 live in my ward, and they're all married, they're adults. And it is interesting that I have learned from them, their dad passed away about the same age as my husband, that I think one thing that the children need to feel comfortable with is when it's in my situation as a widow, that they can always talk about their dad, even when the mom remarries, because this family, the mother will not talk about her late husband. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard on the kids, and even on the daughter-in-laws. All 3 of them said to me, they are so glad that I speak openly about my husband. And I said, well, you know what, if I can't do that in a new relationship, in a new marriage eventually, then that person is right for me. So I think there's that respect for that person. And I think it should go the same way in a divorce, in my opinion. If I were to date somebody that was divorced, I would want them to speak well of their first spouse, yes, so that their children can feel comfortable. I want to respect the children too, because they've been through a difficult time too. And that's just my own learning experience with this family. But they said, yeah, it's hush hush to talk about the first husband, even though he's died. I was like, oh, I don't want that. I want my kids to always feel comfortable. And when I remarried, everybody can feel comfortable about the loss of my husband, because he was important to me, and same with their previous spouses.
I think that's a really good way. And we all deal with grief differently, but I think the whole purpose of this chapter, in my opinion, is to consider the effects that our grieving and that our choices have on our children, and how we can make it be beautiful. I'm so glad that Jeff brought up both Kathy and Jeff brought up the idea that I could actually involve my daughter in my friendships and relationships that I'm building, and she can learn with me as I'm learning, and I can teach her and mentor her about keeping a healthy relationship. We even had discussions during the time, not too personal that would violate his privacy, but enough that we were all open about our feelings and open about our experiences. So I think it's valuable. Jeff, welcome. And yes, you have something to say. Yeah, we're at 10:50. I'm sorry, because usually he jumps on at 10:45. And Jeff, you're still on mute, in case you didn't know that. Anyway, so yeah, any questions that we have for Jeff or Kathy, or any comments you have that this is their turn?
Well, I just had a couple things to add really quick. One is on the subject of mom and dad being together. Most of you know, I went through a second divorce after a very brief marriage. And when that happened, my son Henry was living with me. He was 17 years old, and he and myself and my former wife had occasion to go out to dinner together with a bunch of other members of my former wife's family shortly after the separation from my second wife occurred. And Henry kind of brought up later on, maybe you and mom can get back together. And you could have knocked me over with a feather. Like, I thought both of my boys totally understood that was never happening. And I told him that as kindly as I could. Henry, as nice as that might be in theory, it's never going to happen. I did the best I could for as long as I could, and I can't do any more with your mom. I mean, I hope her life goes well from here on. But anyway, so I think sometimes our kids are harboring that fantasy that mom and dad are going to get back together. It's going to be like The Parent Trap. And so I think
careful of that too.
And if we're not dating because we're trying to preserve that fantasy for them, we're not really serving them.
Yeah.
Second thing, I remember the first woman that I really was totally in love with after my first divorce from my kid's mom. Not that it matters, but her name was Emily. And one night she had this very connected conversation with Henry. And I thought, wow, I don't think any woman has ever talked to him like this and really been able to draw him out and all of that. And then the next day she broke up with me. And I said to her, what am I going to tell Henry now? He thinks you're awesome. And anyway.
And I know differently. No, just kidding.
I thought she was awesome too. I still think she's awesome.
Yeah.
But as fate would have it, I had a long road trip with both of my sons right after it. And I remember I was not in a good place. I mean, it hurt just as bad in here as getting divorced did. Mm-hmm. It didn't last as long, thankfully, but it was just the same kick in the gut that I had getting divorced from their mom. And I mean, I was in a bad mood and I was sort of, biting their heads off over every little thing. And we stopped at a truck stop and my older son, Errol, bought me a gift. I don't know why, but it wasn't even that cool of a gift, but it just sort of shifted me. It was like that little bit of.
He wanted to make you happy.
Yeah. And realizing that helped me feel more loved or something. Mm-hmm. One more thing, in the experience I had with Kathy, I had known her kids for 2 years by the time we got married. So we had a chunk of a year where we dated, and then we were broken up for a year. But even in that year, I maintained the friendship with Kathy and with the boys, and they actually came to a couple of family events and things. And it was not long before Kathy and I actually got back together that her oldest, Tucker, said to her mom, I think you should give Jeff another chance. Because I did have a bond with those boys even then. And I think that made it a lot easier than it would have been me moving in and potentially disrupting their life. Yeah. But because they already cared about me and, it wasn't easy, it wasn't perfect, but it went a lot smoother than it could have if I was a stranger moving in. Yeah. And then the final thought, I think a lot of people worry about, well, dating is going to create drama for the kids. If I break up, they're going to get hurt. All of those things are possible. Kind of like Eric alluded to earlier, I actually double dated with my oldest son sometimes. In fact, one of the women that he dated on on a few of those is his wife now, my daughter-in-law.
Awesome.
And so I think sometimes, though, it was like two families dating. There was a woman I dated one summer, and we had lots of cookouts over at her house, and her kids would be there and my kids would be there. And it sort of created this almost sense of being in a family, even though it was temporary and we didn't end up working out. I mean, my kids have gotten to know, because of their request that they get introduced early, they got to know a lot of my dating partners. They're Facebook friends with those people still, and their kids sometimes. And in many cases, they're Facebook friends with their kids. And I think that created some really important bonds that are not, obviously they're not the bonds of family that we thought at the time they could end up being. But even though, they love Kathy and they love our family as non-traditional as it may be, having had those experiences with me and having sort of two families dating instead of just two people, I think that enriched their lives in a way that, like I think Suzanne said, they've been able to see me in more healthy relationships. I mean, you said that too about the relationship you had. They were able to see me in more healthy, respectful relationships, even though those didn't ultimately work out until Kathy. I think that was a good thing for them. It wasn't the same as being in an intact family. I don't pretend it was, but I think it gave them a little sense of it anyway.
Yep, they have it. It changes from what they understand. This is how it is, or this is how it should be. They can see it. And not anyway. I don't know what I'm saying, but she has never gotten the vision of a healthy relationship by seeing her father and I, even though we have moments of healthy. That's why I'm grateful for those relationships that I can have where it can be different. Christina, you always have amazing things to share, and we've just been talking so much. I don't know if you have anything you want to add, and then welcome, Michael. You might have thought that it started at 11, so it's almost over. It's actually time to end the call, but I want anyone you guys, if you have to leave, you can leave, or if you have anything more to share, we'll just stay on maybe 20-30 more minutes if you want, but just more thoughts that you guys have to share. We'll keep it recorded and you can watch the end if you have to leave right now. So.
Sherry, can I tell you one more kind of cool thing that people can keep in their back pocket?
Yeah, sure.
So when Kathy and I exchanged rings in the temple, the day we got married, Kathy turned around after that and put a wedding ring on my oldest son's hand.
Cool.
And I gave her son's wedding rings out on the grounds of the temple. The practical side of blending a family was more complicated, but was a good experience from start to finish. But I just thought that was a cool symbolic thing that we did at that time.
They were CTR rings.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's cute. I love it, you guys. That's really cool. I saw that story in that chapter. That was really good. Oh, Christine, did she fall out? Oh no, maybe she got scared. I might have scared her. Oh, there you are. You're here. I see you. You just had shifted because maybe someone else left and then it shifted you. Now I see you.
I'm here. Today I was thinking mostly to listen and to think about it. It's a very emotional topic. Mm-hmm. like you mentioned, we just want the best for our children, and then also for us, of course. Yeah.
Ultimately for us, that's the whole family.
Yeah, we just I am like swimming in faith. Yeah. I just thinking, I know calculating too much. It's just I do it because I have a love for Heavenly Father, that He wants us to honor, to have a family in the way that we can please Him and we can honor Him and we can glorify to Him together. That's my goal, to find a companion that we can rejoice in Christ, and we can do all the things that we're supposed to do.
Yes.
So we can honor him. And right now it's just about healing process. I have been healing the last couple of years, and even before I got divorced, because when I was going to the temple by myself, I was thinking that I will bring the spirit to our home.
Mm-hmm.
And then for plan A or plan B, to work it out, or to the D.
Yeah.
Then ended up with the D, and then I got comforted that all the things that I've been doing was for me,
Yeah.
I was thinking that would be for the relationship, but was for my relationship with Heavenly Father. I ended up feeling that I was released, I was feeling relief too, and release of the calling as a wife with that person.
Yeah.
But I got a peace, and right now it's just preparing myself, and I just trusting that he will provide, and he will, prepare the way, and just trying to be an instrument. And those are my goals. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. I will rejoice with you someday.
Yeah. We want to, and so Eric might agree. Oh, actually, Jeff and Kathy also agree with this too. The coaches all in here agree that you can create that. You will be able to create that through all the techniques and tools and faith, and yeah, so cool. And Kathy, did you have something to say? Also, is your hand still raised, or is it new raised?
Yes, it's still raised.
Okay.
I will lower it now that I'm talking.
Oh,
Hang on. Yeah, there you go, lower hand. Okay, so you guys are all about to see something that nobody hardly ever gets to see, okay?
oh, your curlers. I saw that picture. Adorable. Yay.
Yeah, so we have a big interview in about an hour with Greg Bear, Dr. Greg Bear. Have you guys heard of him?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're so excited about that. And we're also going to a funeral of a family friend. So I'm just getting ready for that, and I didn't have time to take these out before we hopped on. So
okay, you look adorable.
thank you. Okay, so I just wanted to apologize to everyone who came on thinking we were going to talk about physical affection and dating because chapter 17.
Oh, gotcha. I said the wrong picture.
Well, it's possible that the chapter we sent you early was wrong, because we changed the chapters around a few times, including like our love story that's at the end, which one of our editors and several of our beta readers thought was so much better at the end, kind of as like, the culmination of everything we talk about in the book.
I'm sorry.
So it changed the number. Yeah, so next week will be chapter 17 on physical affection. But I think this has been a great conversation, and I've really enjoyed getting to know your stories better. Eric, remind me your friend's name, because I forgot. I know you introduced yourself at first.
Yeah, this is Aaron.
Hi.
Yep.
Okay, so Eric and Aaron.
And I would love to join in next week. I mean, all of these topics are just so absolutely pertinent and really important to know. Like when you've gone through divorce, or you've lost, your significant other, it's like, gosh, you just really want to be conscientious and do things, in the healthiest way possible. So thank you for, for all of your research, for putting it together so beautifully. And for sharing it.
Glad you're here. Aaron,
please come again.
Are you on Love in Later Years and Thriving Singles Community Facebook groups?
I'm not, but I know somebody who can add me.
Okay, yeah. So if you can be connected, the Thriving Singles Community is where I share the link. So, and information and advertisements and events and stuff. So yeah.
Thank you. What a wonderful group. I'm so excited to be part of it.
Awesome group. Yeah. Does anyone else have anything before you take off to say?
I just want to say welcome to them. So I just feel so happy that we have new people, and hopefully we can have more. And I just feel very emotional for to know Kathy and Jeff. Yeah. I met them first of all from YouTube, and then they introduced me to go to Facebook. At that time, I wasn't in Facebook. I wanted to have a vacation on Facebook, but I just entered to Facebook because of them. The first thing that I clicked was Love in Later Years. That was the first thing. I didn't have any. I needed to find new friends and reconnect with other friends in the past. I was coming back to socialize more because I was like in a cocoon. I was just in my my inner. I wanted just to do grounding. I just didn't want it to have too much noise. I saw that was the perfect time. And then when Jeff says in one of the videos with Kathy that there is always time for more love in your life. I didn't get it too much. I told Kathy that I believe that there is more love when it's the right time, but he was explaining me about the inner love and we just need to keep growing. So I'm very grateful for them. They are like our father and mother. I don't know, like they are just grabbing us and giving that love that we need as support. And I'm very grateful for them.
Yes, Eric, what did you have to say about cocoon?
Well, I just really love that image. Cocoon to ground yourself and to kind of work on that inner transformation, and just that the result of then flying and being a butterfly and exploring the world and connecting with flowers and just such a beautiful image. Thank you for sharing that.
That is beautiful.
Transformation, right? Caterpillar to a butterfly.
And that all comes about because of the atonement of Jesus Christ, right? And because that's what, like when you were talking about that, it just brought such a feeling of hope to me. And gosh, I mean, it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, so good, you guys. Does Michael or Sharon have anything to add? Michael, you might not know because it will. I don't know if you read the chapter. It was about our children's role in our dating life. Do you have anything to say about that, Michael, before we jump off?
I'm just listening.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining. And if you have anything more, don't hesitate to share it on our wall too. That's fun. We have a lot of people that will share their 2 cents or a post or a link or whatever. That feel free to do that.
David was here for quite a bit of this, but I think he's gone now.
Who was that?
Oh, David was here for quite a bit of this, but I think he's gone now.
Yeah, he was. Anyway, thanks guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.